A federal appeals court on Thursday, June 19th, handed a key victory to President Donald Trump, allowing him to continue deploying the National Guard in response to immigration protests in Los Angeles. The court overturned a lower court ruling from San Francisco, which had ordered Trump to return control of the troops to California Governor Gavin Newsom. The judges said the San Francisco ruling was in error, effectively clearing the way for federal authority to remain in place. In a unanimous 38-page ruling, a three-judge panel from the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals backed President Donald Trump's decision to take federal control of California's National Guard. The court found that conditions in Los Angeles were serious enough to justify Trump's move, citing the need to enforce federal immigration laws amid growing unrest. The panel concluded that the president acted within his authority to deploy the Guard, reinforcing the federal government's power in matters of national security and immigration enforcement. The three-judge panel, comprised of 2 Trump appointees and one appointed by former President Joe Biden, rejected a lower court's ruling that the protests in Los Angeles weren't severe enough to justify federal intervention. At the center of the case was Trump's use of a rarely invoked law to override Governor Gavin Newsom's control and federalize the California National Guard. In an unsigned opinion, the panel wrote, "Affording appropriate deference to the president's determination, we conclude that he likely acted within his authority in federalizing the National Guard. Affording appropriate deference to the president's determination, we conclude that he likely acted within his authority in federalizing the National Guard." The ruling came as no surprise. During a 65-minute hearing on Tuesday, the judges had already signaled their support for President Trump's continued control of the National Guard. All 3 judges, Mark J. Bennett, Eric D. Miller, and Jennifer Sung, appeared inclined to side with the administration, at least for now, as legal battles over California's challenge continue. But the legal fight is far from over. The case returns Friday to the San Francisco courtroom of U.S. District Judge Charles Breyer. There, Judge Breyer will consider whether to issue a broader preliminary injunction, one that could limit Trump's authority over the 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 active duty Marines already deployed in Los Angeles. The Trump administration has argued that the troops are not themselves performing law enforcement tasks, but rather are protecting civilian agents who are trying to arrest migrants living in the country illegally. Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, suggested that he might not obey a ruling from the lower court, telling senators on the Armed Services Committee on Wednesday that he doesn't believe district courts should be setting national security policy.
Let's face it, it is not normal to call up our troops in this way, and there is active litigation against this deployment. Will you follow a court's order regarding whether or not this deployment is legal? If the court says this deployment of troops into our cities is not legal, would you follow that court's order?
It's pending in the courts, Senator.
Well, when the court decides, would you follow that court's order decision?
I don't believe district courts should be determining national security policy.
So you will not be following that.
When it goes to the Supreme Court, we'll see.
Court. And unless the president decides to appeal, there you have it. So I take it that you don't consider district court decisions to be legitimate.